Good morning, everybody. How are you all this morning? You're all chatty. I love it. Such a good energy in this room. The sunshine, even though it's cold for June 1st. Happy June. It is good to be together. It is the start of summer, which means vacations and different schedules. So it is good to come together and to be with you all here this morning. If you're joining us online, we are glad you are here as well, joining us in that way. A few announcements for you all. If you are a partner, you should have received an email about some new stewards in the last couple of weeks. Every year we have 2 stewards who go off the team and 2 new ones who come on. This year we actually have 3 coming on because Nate DeWard is going to go hang out in the Virgin Islands for a while. He told us about that a couple of weeks ago, a great opportunity for him. So Jeff Rikike is going to step in and fill his term. And then Heather Carroll, sorry, there's a typo there. Apologies. We're going to call her Heather Karen now. Why not? She'll take it. Heather Carroll will be. Heather Carroll has been nominated for the Open Steward of Care space, and Alyssa Trank-Zelowitz has been nominated for the Steward of Resources position. We will officially vote on those next week. This is us putting it in front of you and those names in front of you. If you have any questions about those people or about the role that they might serve, feel free to talk to any one of the current stewards or to Chris or I. And then next Sunday, we will take an official partner vote on those people and get them installed and into the mix. So thank you to those of you who have said yes to this call and to step into leadership in that way. So, all right, it is summer. Officially, not officially, whatever. June 1st is summer. I'm declaring June 1st to be summer. So there is, I meant to grab it, but I don't have it. Around the building, in a couple of places, you'll see a flyer that has our summer events and schedules. Since we printed those, a couple of things shifted a little bit. So the BEMA group is meeting throughout the summer. Laura's going to talk about them here in just a little bit. They are actually adding dinner, so we'll hear more about that here in just a second. There are fireside chats starting this Tuesday at 7:15 at the Herbolt's backyard. They have many chairs and some iffy chairs. They said, if you're willing to take a risk, you don't have to bring anything. So we'll have stuff for s'mores there. Bring your own beverages and gather around a campfire for some really informal chats and getting to know some people. It's always been, the last couple of years we've done this, it's always been a great time to get to know some other people. So we hope you can join us. No need to sign up. Just show up when you can. Tuesdays at 7:15. And then in a couple of weeks, Create comes back to this building. We gather a bunch of kids and a bunch of adults, and we create together with a whole bunch of different classes. So if you have not signed up for that, if you have not registered for that, I'm just going to invite you to take out your phone right now and do that. Even if you don't select your class selection, we're putting in t-shirt orders like tomorrow. So we need to know who's going to be here. So sign up, invite your friends, all of those things. If you would like to volunteer, now's the time to let us know as well. Bethany is here. You can let her know. You can let me know. Lindsay is here too. I didn't see you walk in, Linz. You can let us know that you want to volunteer. We would love to have you. All right. Laura, you want to come tell us about BEMA?
BEMA. So what BEMA is we have been meeting now for a year, and we listen to the BEMA podcast, which you can find on any podcast, app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, things like that. They're usually a half hour to 45-minute long podcasts, and the guy who talks just is walking through the Bible. We're in Exodus now, so we've been meeting for a year, and we made it through Genesis. So this is like, you can come and go as much as you want, but know that there's a lot of time to join in if you would like to. We're meeting this summer. We've changed from Sunday nights to weekdays, so it's Thursday, 6:30 is when we're officially like talking, which is super chill and relaxed and just discussing what we thought about things. And sometimes there are questions, but a lot of times it's just reactions and chatting. But during the summer at least, we're going to meet at 6, I guess. The carolers are going to grill, and we can bring stuff as we can. So that is something that's added on just to add, because a lot of times we do end up wanting to just chat and hang out. So that gives us some official time to do that. Kids are welcome. They have a backyard with a trampoline and swing set. They also have a basement with movies. So if that is something that you need to do, bring your kids. And we'll probably be outside most of the summer. So any questions? If you want to come to this first one, it's June 12. I think we're at like 20, episode 20, maybe. Is that right? Ish. Episode 20. If you need to know, just talk to me and I can look at my podcast thing and figure out where I've listened to.
Thank you, Laura. We'll also, we try to keep that updated in the bulletin in your announcement sheet as well, which episode you're on. So even if you can't join the group for a couple of weeks, you can keep listening to the episodes and then jump back in as well. So thank you, Laura. Any other questions, you can talk to Laura a little bit later, or you can talk to Carol's or Hairbolts are also there as well. All right. All of these things, friends, are in your Church Center app. So if you don't have the Church Center app, it's probably a good idea to get it. It is the way that you can stay up to date on most everything that we do. There's a calendar portion that even if there's not a sign up, you can see everything that's going on. So even if we have a barbecue over 4th of July weekend that we don't have details for, it's already in there. So you can see what's coming up through that app. All right? All right. One more thing to talk about before we move into worship here. Actually, no, that's not true. This is absolutely part, because we gather together and we celebrate together and we share each other's highs and lows and all of those things. We're going to do a little bit of that this morning. But to start that off, I wanted to celebrate some really amazing things that have happened in the last couple of weeks. Brian, can you throw up a couple of that first slide with pictures here? Thank you. On your top left there, that is the group that gathered last week and cleaned up the park, or the woods area down 28th Street here. We very quickly filled 8 bags of trash and found tires. So all of that stuff was cleaned up by this wonderful group of volunteers. I think Monroe didn't make it in the photo, so sorry, but she was there too. So thank you to those of you who joined and helped with that effort. This is a part of a collaboration with a group called the Alger Garfield Green Team, and they are doing these different things throughout the city and partnering with, or throughout our neighborhood, and partnering with different groups to clean up our neighborhood. So it is good stuff that's moving forward through that group. And then you see a picture of a shed. Wow. Ooh, it is so pretty. Do you know why it's so pretty? Oh, Bethany. Okay, that shed a few weeks ago did not look so pretty. It is on the side over here. The doors were falling off, literally, and it was not painted that nicely, and the roof was not in good shape. So Chris fixed a bunch of these things, fixed the doors, fixed the roof, and then Matt DeBlay came out and painted it so it's pretty and red and it matches the rest of the building. So let's thank these people, please. And then the next slide, Brian has a couple more pictures. I went shopping at Meijer yesterday with y'all's money, so thank you. These are donations for Leah Ferenzi and the youth support store that we've been calling it. You all so generously donated. You filled a bin of things here in the office, and then we raised $420 in addition to that. So I dropped these off for Leah last night, and she was blown away by your support. So she's like, this is way more than I ever expected. So thank you for supporting her and for supporting the youth in Lansing. Do you have a question, Chris? I would like to know. Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Okay, I have a story. So I put all this stuff on the conveyor belt, and yes, I pulled out my camera to take a picture, and the cashier actually posed and smiled when I took it, so I should have gotten her in here, but I didn't. But she asked what this was all for. She's like, I'm assuming this is for donation and not just your house, right? And I was tempted to mess with her, but I didn't. So I told her the story of what you all did and what Leah is doing. And then she just started applying discounts and discounts. So now we actually have a little extra money to support Leah going forward. So yes, thank you for asking that. I forgot about that for the moment. So thank you for supporting Leah and for supporting these youth in Lansing as well. That donation will go a very, very long way. All right. Celebrations are good. We need to do more of that, right? We need to mark these moments of good things. So it's fun to be able to share those things. But we also know that that's not all that is held in us, in this group, in this gathering, right? There's lots of celebrations happening right now with graduations and end of year and end of sports seasons and all of that. But there's also a lot of hard. So for our call to worship this morning, you're actually going to create it. There is a verse in Matthew 11 that says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy burdened." We've used this verse a lot. We come back to it again and again. But I want to invite you to fill in a blank. We're going to take out those words, weary and heavy burdened, because for some of us, yes, those are true words. But for some of us, they aren't. So I'm going to invite you to fill in the blank for our call to worship. Come to you, come to me, all you who are. What's the word or phrase that you would add there today? How are you? What are you holding and carrying today as you come into this space? And you are welcome to just shout those words out. We would love to hear that as we move forward this morning. Come to me, all you who are tender. Anxious. Come to me, all you who are anxious. Come to me, all you who are overwhelmed. Come to me, all you who are sore, and all who are thirsty. Come to me, all you who are all the things, holding all the emotions, all the experiences, holding the tension of celebration and sorrow, holding all of it. Come to me, says Jesus, and I will give you rest. Put my yoke upon your shoulders. It might appear heavy at first, but it is perfectly fitted for you. Learn from me. Learn my ways, for I am gentle and humble of heart. For when you are yoked to me, your souls will find rest. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. I'm going to invite you to sing a song with me about the ways of Jesus, about about learning from one another, about giving, about loving. So I'm going to invite you to stand in this moment and sing with me. But if that's not right for you this morning, if you need to sit, if you need to just listen, whatever you need to do, we invite you to do whatever is meaningful, most meaningful for you in this moment and in this space. Teach us your ways. Teach us your ways as we learn from one another. Learn to love each other. Teach us your ways. Teach us to give. Teach us to give. Give ourselves for one another. Learn to love each other. Teach us to give. Teach us to weep. Teach us to weep. Let us weep with one another. Learn to love each other. Teach us to weep.
I think it's one of the reasons why we come together and why we gather, because we know deep in ourselves that we don't have enough on our own, that we need to learn from each other. We need other people to weep with. And so I'm grateful that you're here today because I need you. And maybe a little somehow you might need me too. And so I'm glad to be here in this space. We created our call to worship together. We're going to create a prayer together here as well. If you're wondering, are Teresa and Chris trying to get off this week and not do any work? Yes, no. I think, again, it's this belief that together we create things that are more layered and more complete than just a person, maybe, on their own creating some liturgy. So I want to ask this question this morning, and this will take a little bit probably for our brains to kind of wrap their minds around it, at least for some of us. Here's the question. Where have you seen or experienced transformation, change, or growth? Okay, so just let that kind of roll around for a moment. Where have you seen or experienced transformation, change, or growth? We're asking that question because what we want to offer this morning are prayers of gratitude and prayers of praise and prayers of thanksgiving for these things, for the ways in which this does in fact happen. And here's some prompts. The next slide will show you maybe some helpful prompts. Like, when have you learned a new skill? recently or long ago, playing the piano. You taught yourself how to do that, or you took some lessons, or a new language, or you started a hobby in woodworking or crocheting. That's an example of transformation and change. And along those lines, creating art. Or if you want to think about a relationship that was healed, actually, it may be a very dramatic way, but also maybe in a very simple way, like this person that I love and I'm very connected to, we had a conflict and we worked it out, A societal shift, maybe a policy shift. You may have to think, if you're trying to find positive changes, you may have to think back a little bit. But they're there. A theological shift, a transformation that happens in the created world, in nature. Okay. And anything else that comes to your mind. Where have you seen or experienced yourself transformation, change, or growth? What comes to mind? A 10-week-old baby. Yeah, you have the gift of constant change and noticeable change, right? Right in front of you. I don't mean to make you cry. Yes, a 10-week-old. Children are a really lovely example. Easy to take for granted, though, because it just is. It happens for everyone. So I'm glad you call it out, Elizabeth. What else? We've had some backyard bird feeders now for a few years, and the number of birds, the variety of birds, the change in who's coming to visit us has increased significantly. We also have changed as people who now care a lot more about birds than we ever did before, who have bird apps on our phones and this sort of thing. So we've certainly changed too. Mm-hmm. What's in the ground for the flowers? And things are growing. Yes. Katie's never planted anything before, and she's done it now, and it's actually working. There's change and really dramatic transformation happening right in front of you. Beautiful. Deb, what were you going to say? Who sees better? Because of these? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I do. So I've undergone a degradation, a change that has led to, so I appreciate you pointing that out. I'm joking with you. Yeah, our bodies are 10-week-olds, yes. Easy to see the change of the littlest among us easily, but we're all changing. Sometimes those changes are maybe not what we would like them to be, but those do present these opportunities, right, for growth maybe in a different sort of way. As I'm sitting here just thinking about you pointing, the need for glasses, this is frustrating for me, but in that frustration, there's a lot to learn. And so there's opportunity for change. Yeah, Joan. Just in case you couldn't hear, and for those online, Joan was sharing her and Dale leaving a church community that they were a part of for decades, and the pain in that, but finding new relationships and learning from people and being blessed by the people in this place and the transformation that has come. And I'm sure I know there are many people here who would reciprocate that back to you. Is that what you were going to say? Yeah. Thanks, Christy. Yeah. Yeah, a story that you can echo, yeah, as well. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Hmm. I'm going to not cry. Yeah, JP just shared that he played his last high school baseball game yesterday. Yeah. Yep. These changes of these transitions that you're feeling significantly at this moment in your life, this period in your life. Yeah. Hmm. Mm. Mm. Yeah. Lindsay's a teacher, was with a lot of fifth graders last week at a 2-night overnight camp, 2 nights of overnight camp. I thought you might take this in a different direction with that setup, because that sounds really challenging. But she's pointing out the way in which so many of these kids were brave and trying new things, including being away from home for 2 nights. Yeah, it's inspiring. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. A cool thing happening in the city of gathering businesses and having them all throw money into a pot. Businesses That Care is the organization, and then they give away this huge amount of money to the organization that they choose through an application process. Yeah, I think I'll end us there because I'm sure we could keep going, but it kind of illustrates the reason why we wanted to do this exercise this morning, because there is change, positive, beautiful transformation happening around us all the time. We just often don't know it. This example Bethany gives is one. Or we know it, but we're not aware, we're not present to it. And by calling it out here, hopefully we get to say, okay, yeah, there is a lot in this world that is hard, and look at all of the change that is happening for the good, for the betterment of people in this world. And we need to do our best to hang on to both of those things. Yes? Okay. Thanks for joining in that time of prayer there as we offer that to God in gratitude. Yeah, appreciate it. Okay, we're going to take a little pause here in a sense of kind of talking me to you or you to me, and we're going to talk to each other. Are there any kids here that are going to branch kids today? Monroe, are you going? No, not yet. Okay, a little while. Okay, so then let's just stand and let's greet one another. Find somebody maybe you don't know. Here's my test of whether or not you know someone. Do you know their first and last name? If the answer is no, then you don't know them. So then go and find a person and discover their first and last name today, or something else about them. We'll take a few minutes to do that. Ready, set, go. that?
Yeah, I was hoping when Julie came, but Beth wasn't there.
Okay.
You know, it was like, because Julie's just gets really excited, you know, when somebody's from Philly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Does she live there long?
All right, everybody, why don't we grab a seat? Did I scare you? Yeah. I want to make one little note. If you were to leave this room and right outside the doors there's a cart that we call the art cart, and it's full of all sorts of things that you can use to create with, and it's meant not just for young people but for any people who might be interested in that. And it's quite amazing because we have people, what we ask folks to do is if they create anything with it, if they're willing, to kind of turn it into us. And Deb then collects it and sometimes repurposes it or figures out a way to display it. Someone turned in they sit somewhere around here, or at least that's the perspective from which they drew a Sunday morning moment of me preaching. There's a guy up there in glasses, kind of looks like me. Not bad, and then chairs and other people. Like, really? Wow, who can do that? I didn't know someone around here had that skill. And other things that get created that are quite lovely and beautiful. Now, we don't have the art card out there in order to get you to create something beautiful. We have it out there because we recognize that we all engage and learn differently. And some of us really are helped by having something to draw with or write with or fidget with, for lack of a better word. So anyway, that is out there. That is out there. I want you to know about it. So we're going to take a journey through the Old Testament book of Amos this summer. And if you don't know where Amos is, it's about here in the Bible. So if you go like midway into the Bible, you're going to probably end up in Psalms or maybe Isaiah, and then you need to go to the right. And if you are flipping too quickly, you're going to miss it because it's only 9 chapters. Amos is one of the minor prophets. It's interesting that we've decided to categorize these folks this way. We have major prophets like Isaiah, which is a big book in terms of its size. And then you have these minor prophets, these little ones, which I think it's the wrong way for us to talk about it because it implies that they're somehow smaller or less important. And I would invite you to not judge Amos's punch by his height, if you will. These minor prophets have a lot to say in a short space. And so we're going to look at the first couple chapters here today of this book that I'm guessing most of us have not read in a long time, if maybe ever. And that's okay. I think you might find these folks like Amos pretty interesting people and worth paying attention to. All right. So let me say a couple of words about the prophets. It is a whole category in the Old Testament, okay? And one of the people who had a lot to say, Brian, if you would go to the next slide for me, about the prophets is this person, Abraham Joshua Heschel, born in 1907 in Germany, which if you start doing the math, that means he comes of age into adulthood with the rise of fascism and Nazism. He's a the son of a rabbi, so he is Jewish. And Heschel ends up becoming, I think most would say, one of the most important theological voices of the last century. And certainly when it comes to understanding the prophets, he's a preeminent voice. His book called The Prophets is read in seminaries far and wide. And I read him in seminary, found it actually to be one of the most interesting classes that I took in those entire 3 years. So he comes to age in the 1930s. He's ordained as a rabbi himself, and then he's deported by the Nazis in 1938. Comes to the United States, where he spends the rest of his life, teaches, and writes. And he says that there's a few things that we need to understand about the prophets. Generally speaking, when you think about them as a collective, the Old Testament prophets, they had a radical sympathy with God, which is to say that the prophets feel what God feels. If you are reading the prophets, you have to understand that God feels things. God is not aloof, distant, and detached. God feels, and feels deeply. The prophets are sympathetic to how God feels, and they feel the same way. So when God is expressing agony, and I don't know what else to call it, God is distraught over the waywardness of the people, the prophet is as well. And again, as I kind of alluded to, there's an intensity and an urgency to the prophets. Things are dire in the prophet's view. The world is coming undone. And so the language of the prophets is often very dramatic. Very dramatic. Sometimes shockingly so to our 21st century ears. We'll get some of that today when we start reading in chapter 1. It's language sometimes that I think we're quite uncomfortable with. We don't know what to do with. But if we can remember what Heschel is inviting us to consider, that the prophets feel what God feels and they feel it deeply, then maybe some of the reaction here and some of the language used can make a little more sense. They are lonely and isolated. This is the plight of the prophet. No one really wants to hear what they have to say. The prophets were not like stars, celebrities in their day and age. They had some notoriety. We read a little bit about that. People knew who they were, but they didn't like them because they came and disrupted the status quo. They said the way that the world is not okay. And they were usually saying that to the people who benefited from the way that the world was. So they were disrupting the status quo, and often alone and isolated. But what the prophet is always doing, oh boy, Brian, I need some help. The possibility for restoration is what I was looking for. Yeah, down the list there. The prophets are always offering this because God is always offering this. So we get these dire warnings in the prophets, intense and urgent. Change must happen. The world is coming undone. You've gone so far off track, and things are going to get really, really bad if we don't turn around. But if we do turn around, if we choose a different way, then there is real hope for restoration. That always makes its way into the prophets. We won't see it today, by the way. We're going to be in chapters 1 and 2. We don't get to the hope for restoration part until later on. But it is there, and I want to call that out. It's in every one of the prophets. So Amos is really a textbook for these sorts of things. He fits these really well. He is a person who has been seized by the heart of God. He is ablaze with passion. and he's willing to stand alone to deliver this divine message that the world does not want to hear. We'll get a sense of it as we start reading. So here's Amos 1. This is how the book begins. The words of Amos, one of the shepherds of Tekoa, the vision he saw concerning Israel 2 years before the earthquake, when Uzziah was king of Judah and Jeroboam, son of Jehoash, was king of Israel. There's a few things worth pointing out here, to say the least. One is that Amos is a nobody. He's a shepherd. He is low on the societal ladder. And he lives in Tekoa, which is really a region south of Jerusalem, about 10 miles. It is in the barren wilderness. I've been there, I can tell you it's beautiful, but it is barren. There is not much there. So if you are a nomadic person, and there still are nomadic Bedouins in this part of Israel, you live a traveling life. You move wherever there is food. It's desolate. It's alone. It's a lonely existence. And somehow this person, a shepherd, a nobody, becomes the mouthpiece of God. Now, of course, Amos is Jewish, and he lives in a land among a people who've experienced a great fracturing. Right? The people of Israel, prior to Amos being born, who were one nation under King David, fracture and split. Because when David dies, there's a disagreement about who should lead, who should sit on the throne. And that fracturing splits the nation into the nation of Judah and the nation of Israel. Their own kings and their own capitals and this sort of thing. But Amos is speaking to, he's coming to the Jewish people, God's chosen people. Okay? And this is how, once we get this context, this setup, the next verse is this. He said, Amos said, "The Lord roars from Zion and thunders from Jerusalem. The pastures of the shepherds dry up, and the top of Carmel, a mountain, withers." This is apocalyptic, dramatic sort of language, right? The Lord roars. If you can imagine being a shepherd in the wilderness and you hear the roar of a lion, is that an encouraging, settling sort of sound? No, nor is thunder, right? They're jarring. They put us on alert. They're quite disturbing noises. And this is what Amos says. God is upset. God roars. God thunders. And in response, like the land cannot take it. It dries up and shrivels. It's just too much. Because remember, God feels deeply. And then he goes on, and we get into this pattern, as we'll see in a moment. If you have Amos open in front of you, you'll notice that there are these kind of chunks, and they're going to look very, very similar to each other. This is what the Lord says: for 3 sins of Damascus. So Damascus is the people, the city that we're looking at here. For 3 sins of Damascus, even for 4, I will not relent, because she threshed Gilead with sledges having iron teeth. I will send fire on the house of Hazael that will consume the fortresses of Ben-Hadad. I will break down the gate of Damascus. I will destroy the king who is in the valley of Avon, and the one who holds the scepter in Beth Eden. The people of Aram will go into exile to Kir, says the Lord. Ooh, right? This is fierce. This is intense. Why is God so upset? Well, because she, the people of Damascus, threshed Gilead with sledges having iron teeth. That probably doesn't mean a whole lot to us. So how about a little bit of context? When you harvested grain in the ancient world, you had a threshing floor. Have you heard of this before? An area where you would bring all of the grain that's been cut, wheat, on a stalk with the kernels, for example, and you would lay them down, and then you would attach one of these sleds. The top part is as if you were looking at the bottom, and the bottom image there is if you're looking at it from the side. So it's like a sled. And the one harvesting, would stand on top of the sled, hook it up to an oxen, and the oxen would pull it over the grain. And on the bottom there, you can see all those little markings. Those are actually filled with sharp stones. That's what all those little things are there. They're stones wedged in the bottom of the sled. And so as the oxen is pulling the sled over the grain, these little stones break up the grain so that the kernels can be separated from the stems or the stalks. And this is how you harvest grain on the threshing floor. Well, what does God say Damascus is doing? She's taken the people of Gilead and has threshed them with sledges having iron teeth. This is a metaphor, of course, right? Damascus has absolutely brutalized the people of Gilead. And the only metaphor here that fits is imagining people laying on the threshing floor with a sled with iron teeth being dragged over the top of them. Right? Like that's what's being communicated here in this metaphor. God's upset about this. This is not okay. So that's one section. Immediately we move to this. These are the next verses. This is what the Lord says. For 3 sins of Gaza, even for 4, I will not relent. Why? Because she took captive whole communities and sold them to Edom. I will send fire on the walls of Gaza that will consume her fortresses. I will destroy the king of Ashdod and the one who holds the scepter in Ashkelon. I will turn my hand against Ekron till the last of the Philistines are dead, says the sovereign Lord. Intense. Why is God so upset? Because the people of Gaza have kidnapped Edomites, whole communities of Edomites, and sold them, whole communities, and sold them to the Edomites. My apologies. They're in war, and part of war sometimes in the ancient world is the capture of the people you have beat and conquered and selling them into slavery. That's what's happening here. And again, God will not relent. God sees the injustice and God feels it deeply, is heartbroken, even angered. And so these words, the consequences are fierce, even shocking. Why? This is important to understand about the prophets. What the prophets are trying to do is to shake us out of the status quo, to wake us up from our slumber. And in order to do that, language that is dramatic and hyperbolic is used in order to kind of get our attention and wake up the people who have gone wayward. Heschel uses the phrase that the prophets afflict the comfortable. So this is the beginning of chapter 1. We're only to verse 8. Oh boy, there's more, okay? This is verse 9. This is what the Lord says. For 3 sins of Tyre, even for 4 I will not relent. And then it goes on to list what the people of Tyre have done and the consequences. And then we get to the next section. This is what the Lord says. For 3 sins of Edom, even for 4 I will not relent. And then God tells Edom what they've done that's been off track and the consequences if they do not change. And then it's Ammon. And then it's Moab. Again, if you look at the book of Amos, you see these chunks, and they all follow the same format. One after another, 6 of them, right in a row. And I'll tell you, I was thinking about that this these 6 warnings this week, and I was thinking, if I was someone living in Judah thousands of years ago, or in Israel, and I heard Amos's words, I might think, all right, okay, God, yeah, let them have it. They are our enemies, because all these people groups are people who surround Israel. These are the nations we are against. Bring your judgment, God. You know, if I'm a person in Israel or Judah, I'm probably liking Amos and his message at this point. This feels pretty good, right? And so, yeah, Edom and Gaza and Damascus and all you people, beware, the Lord is upset. And then we get to these words in chapter 2. This is what the Lord says, for 3 sins of Judah, even for 4, I will not relent, because they have rejected the law of the Lord and have not kept his decrees, because they have been led astray by false gods, the gods their ancestors followed. I will send fire on Judah that will consume the fortresses of Jerusalem. In verse 6, this is what the Lord says, for 3 sins of Israel, even for 4, I will not relent. They sell the innocent for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals. They trample on the heads of the poor as on the dust of the ground and deny justice to the oppressed. It doesn't stop here. It actually goes on listing God's grievances against Israel. One thing that humans do almost instinctively, I think, is we assume that God is on our side and not theirs. And God is not on their side, we tell ourselves, because, well, they're living in the wrong. They are making poor choices or they have heretical beliefs. But us? No, not us. We are on God's side. We are in the right. We have made the right choices. We hold the right belief. In other words, we are nothing like the Edomites or the Damascans or the Gazans. But as we move through Amos here, something I think becomes clear. God's desire is for all people, them and us, the people of Moab and Ammon, and the people of Judah and Israel. God's desire is for all people to walk the path of mercy and justice. And God's judgment is for anyone who chooses not to walk that path, who instead oppress the weak, the hungry, the needy, who use their power to crush the other on the threshing floor. Amos makes it clear, no one gets a pass. All will be held to account. Now, this is written thousands of years ago, this book of Amos. And we would be right to ask, what in the world does it have to do with our experience at this moment in time? Well, let me offer 2 things here. Neither are easy, but both are important, I think. First thing I want to offer is, and some of you may know this, as long as I've been here at the branch, which is like almost 20 years now, I've been bivocational, which just means that I'm part-time here and then I'm part-time in another job. Or, as it is in this season of life, I have 2 other jobs. And one of those other jobs is to work for the denomination that we are a part of to help educate people on the conflict in Israel and Palestine. Before October 7th, we used to take tours there, people there. Now, since then, we've been doing a lot of work here in the States. And so, probably because I think about this issue, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, more than most people, because it's my job to do that, I cannot help but read chapter 1, verse 6, and not think of the current realities that are playing. And maybe you did too. This is that verse again. This is what the Lord says, for 3 sins of Gaza, even for 4 I will not relent, because she took captive whole communities and sold them to Edom. I cannot help but read that and think of Hamas's actions on October 7th. I can't. It's too eerily close, you know. When you think about what happened on October 7th and since, the numbers are staggering. In Israel, over 1,100 people have been killed, over 8,700 injured. There are still 58 hostages who have been there for over a year and a half in the tunnels of Gaza. I don't know what else to call what has happened other than horrific and abhorrent and inhumane. I mean, I think if Amos were alive today, he would have words for Hamas, and they would be unequivocally fierce. But remember that God's justice and judgment is for anyone who is crushing people under the threshing stones. God will call out anyone who is trampling on the heads of the needy and denying justice to the oppressed. And so I also believe that if Amos were alive today, he would have words for Israel's government. And they too, those words would be unequivocally fierce. Because the Israeli government has unleashed a military campaign with a stated purpose of not just destroying Hamas, but destroying the entire people of Palestine. I wish it wasn't true. But very publicly, in front of cameras with microphones turned on, far-right ministers of Israel's cabinet have said very clearly that the goal is to destroy the people of Palestine. Smotrich, who is the finance minister in the current cabinet, an extreme far-right cabinet minister, he has said things like, and I quote, "There is no such thing as Palestinians because there is no such thing as a Palestinian people." He said this just a couple months ago. "There are no half measures in Rafah or Nezarite, these towns and cities in Gaza. There are no half measures, only total annihilation." Those are his words. And I think you see what has happened, in Gaza reflect those desires. Over 54,000 people have been killed, 17,000 of them at least being children. Over 120 have been injured. This is drone footage. It's already a couple months ago of Gaza, Gaza City, a couple of other areas you'll see here. And you'll notice it's just utter devastation. It is a wasteland in Gaza. There is nothing left. Almost 90% of schools have been destroyed. 92% of homes have been damaged or destroyed. 68% of all cropland has been destroyed. Why would you destroy cropland in a war? You don't. It's actually against international law. But the international law is really not being followed. It wasn't followed by Hamas. Let's be very clear about that. It is not being followed by Israel either. Here's some of those statistics I just mentioned of the devastation. We're actually, though, the conversation for those who pay really close attention to this issue right now is not about how to rebuild Gaza. We're like nowhere close to that conversation. Because right now the current need is food. I don't know, it's so hard to follow so many things today, right? That you may have not been aware that starting on March 8th, Israel closed all entry points into Gaza. And for over 80 days, they did not allow one drop of water, one crumb of food, one portion of medicine, one shelter into Gaza. 80 days. What would happen in our very well-to-do, well-infrastructured world if our grocery stores did not get deliveries for 80 days, right? You can imagine the chaos. So the UN said this week that 100% of Gazans, 100%, are on the brink of famine. Now, Israel has opened the borders again to allow some aid to come in the last about, I think it was 14, 15 days ago. But everyone agrees it is a drop in the bucket. About 10% of the necessary amount of aid is being allowed in, even though the UN has more than enough aid waiting at the borders. For me, when I look at the situation and these actions of withholding food from women and children, and the overwhelming majority of Gazan men who have nothing to do with Hamas, it's abhorrent. It's horrific, it's inhumane, and it's illegal. You know, we got together as countries after World War II, which was a brutal war, yes? Where we would just indiscriminately bomb cities, both sides, and kill unimaginable amounts of civilians. We got together after World War II and said, hey, we shouldn't do this anymore. This is bad. And out came the Geneva Conventions and other formal documents that we all signed on to and said, yes, let's agree to these principles. One of which is, we will not use starvation as a tool of war, right? This is a part of our international law, but I'm afraid international law means much less than it used to. So this is the reality, and I cannot read this text without thinking of what is happening today. I'd like to not talk about this, you know. I'd like this to not be an issue, but I can't help talking about it. If you're a person who wants to respond to this, and I've been saying quite a bit lately, I hope you've heard me, that when it comes to issues of justice, you and I have to pick our lane, right? You and I, as individuals, cannot respond to every injustice in the world. So this conflict might not be your lane, so to speak. That's okay. But if this is your lane, if this is something you care about, or if it isn't your lane but you still feel compelled to act, and that does happen as well, we don't have to like rigidly stay in our lane all the time. We can step out of it. Then here's a couple of suggestions. These two organizations are in Gaza as we speak, trying to do what they can. I mean, the World Central Kitchen, which I'm on their email list, has been saying for weeks now since the blockade, we have no more food to give out. So we've transitioned all of our equipment to try and provide sanitized water. And so that's been the work that they've been trying to do. But they are there with staffing, and they are ready if food is able to get in. I think they're an organization worth supporting financially. And Doctors Without Borders is one of the most courageous. All of these people are so wildly courageous. But they are worth supporting as well. They are there on the ground trying to provide what they can. The other thing I'll say is that if you care about this issue, if this is your lane or you feel compelled to act, you and I need to be calling our representatives. I used to be very cynical about this, about the effectiveness of calling your, congressperson or your senator. And then I went to DC last year and met with aides of both of Michigan senators and my representative, and I was really surprised by what I learned. All of them said, no, it's not true, 2 of the 3 said, if people call about an issue, as an aide, it is my responsibility to tell the congressperson or the senator that people are calling. It may not guarantee that things change, but I can guarantee you that if no one calls, I'm not going to talk to the senator about it. It's not going to get on their agenda. So the only way that things have the potential to change is if the constituency raises their voice. And I was like, okay, all right, So not about this issue only, but about any issue, I heard it from them. They said, speak up. And so I'm offering that to you as well. Again, I cannot read Amos and not think about this issue. What I'm going to do for those of you who might consider this your lane, or for those who might just be curious about this conflict because there is so much more to say, I'm just going to hang out afterwards. We'll dismiss, we'll give a blessing here in a few minutes, and then if you want to stick around, you're welcome to. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or share a few more thoughts as well. So that's one way in which this text, I think, speaks to this moment. The other is very kind of personal, I think, for each of us. I think Amos challenges us to take a good, honest, humble look at our lives. Or as Jesus said, we need to see the speck in our own eye, or in the eye of the other, and pay attention to the log that's in our own. So Amos, in a way, asks some questions. And we could just consider for ourselves today, have I been led astray by false gods? And you may say, of course not. I'm a very devout person. I don't have idols in my home. But think for a moment about the gods of materialism, say, or the god of individualism. It is easy to sell out to those gods, to give our heart to them. Am I selling the innocent for silver? Again, I would probably say at first blush, no, I'm not doing that. And then I went to a TED Talk of a high schooler on Friday, because my daughter's high school's class was delivering a series of TED Talks, and one of them was on fast fashion, and I was like, uh-oh. So I'm rethinking how I might be using the poor and the underprivileged for my own benefit. I think we're actually all complicit in that in some ways. So I'm asking the question, how? For me. And what can I do to change that? Am I denying justice to the oppressed? Again, I would say no, of course not. Is that really true? What ways do I participate in systems that keep certain groups of people out of the center and on the margins? It's easy to do. And I prefer to just ignore the prophet. I would. The prophet wants to disrupt the status quo, and I want to kind of keep the status quo. It works for me a lot of the time. But Amos, I think, is challenging us to think carefully and deeply about our own lives. We have the chance to do that here, to consider that as we share this meal. This meal is certainly introspective, or it can be. We look first to the sacrifice, the undeserved giving and generosity of Christ. And then we, I think, if we are open, ask ourselves, how does the generosity of Christ change me and invite me to live in a similar way in this world? So you're invited to share in this meal and to ask those questions, or to ask and consider whatever the Spirit may be saying to you this morning. We'll have a few people up front here, and up front is a gluten-free option if you would like that. And in the back, we'll have a couple of people with bread and cup. We invite you to come forward. We'll put a piece of bread in your hand. You can grab a cup from the tray, take them back to your seat, and we'll share them together. We'll eat and drink them together. Friends, these are the gifts of God. I say that often, and I mean it. They are gifts for all of us who are hungry and thirsty. So come to the table. Let's share and eat and drink together. Who would be willing to help serve this meal with us? If you'd come on up, that would be great. I think we need to get you guys on the payroll, you too. Thanks. Appreciate you. You want to head back there? Need a couple of other folks who might be willing. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it, man. Friends, whenever you're ready, feel free to come forward. Gifts that God gives to us to help us not only remember, but help us to live forward in a way that reflects this love. And so remember the gift given to you, the gift of grace, the gift of forgiveness, the gift of mercy that just comes and comes and comes to us day after day. Let's remember it as we take and eat. I know that when I see someone live well, live with love, live with generosity, it's impactful. May this cup be impactful to you and to me, and may it propel us to live in the same way as we take and drink. We'll pass these baskets around, and you can put the cups in them, and they can start clinking as they make their way around. Thankful to the cafe people who wash these every week for us, do that diligent work. Teresa's trying to hand off one of the best things in the world, a sleeping baby, and she's going to lead us in our final song here this morning. So let me invite you to stand as we sing these words together.
My arm might be asleep, so we'll see what happens. It's fine. Worth it. Worth it. This song has words in the chorus about broken people, we can be made whole. And I can't help but think that those transformations that maybe we don't believe are possible actually are possible. So let's, even if we don't feel it, listen or sing those words together today with the hope that that is true. Will we ever rise? Will we ever rise above the fear? Can we learn to see the need? Can we share humanity? I can see another day come. Broken people, we can be made whole. We can be made whole. We can be made whole. As we lay down our weapons, open up our hearts. Love is breaking us, love remaking us. Will we ever rise? Will we ever rise above the pain? Can we learn another way? Forgive as you forgave. I can see another day come. Broken people, we can be made whole. We can be made whole. We can be made whole. As we lay down our weapons, open up our hearts. Love is breaking us, love remaking us. Come heal now, take away the blindness, so we can see as we were meant to see. We feel light, devastating darkness, where I can see another day come. I can see another day come. Broken people, we can be made whole. We can be made whole. We can be made whole. As we lay down our weapons, open up our hearts. Love is breaking us, love remaking us. I can see another day come.
Brian, would you put up the slide from that last song, As We Lay Down Our Weapons? We'll use that as our blessing here in just a moment. I want to say that if you want to stick around, I'll stick around in just a couple minutes, and we can kind of gather here and see if you have any questions, or if you have, and you want any more information about what's happening in Gaza currently. And then on a much more hopeful and happy note, I do want to mention that next Sunday we are celebrating our seniors, of which we have a few, and so we'd love to have you here to join us in that celebration next week, just to say that out loud. All right. There are not nearly the children here today that would come and consume the extra communion things, and so I invite anyone who is hungry and thirsty still to come forward at the end as well. But here's your blessing for this week, friends. May you be people who lay down your weapons. May you be people who open your hearts. And as you do those things, may you find that God is transforming you, remaking you, reshaping you. May it be so this week. Amen. Thanks for being here, everybody.